What's up guys, Robert Rule of 2 Review here, and today, is next-gen power really that important? So before I get to the news item that I wanted to talk about today, I had to give a little update and amendment to basically the news that I had yesterday, which would be, of course, talking about The Last of Us and the first DLC, which is called Left Behind. And wouldn't you know it, that just a day after I talked about it, and after all sorts of new information and some interviews had come out about the upcoming DLC, we actually get the official release date. Via some photo leaks, it turns out that it was confirmed via the PlayStation Network, and then subsequently from Naughty Dog, that Left Behind for The Last of Us will be coming out on Valentine's Day. So February 14th, 2014, the day of love. We can all share our love in one of the greatest games of all time with the first DLC content. That is pretty badass. All I have to say to that is Happy Valentine's Day to all of us gamers. So now, on to the good stuff. So this news item that I wanted to talk about today comes from a very short and sweet article on IGN. And it's referencing somebody who works for the, it's an executive for Microsoft Australia. So I thought that was kind of funny. But regardless, that's who he is. And he had mentioned something. It's weird because they kind of paraphrased in the article. It's relating to the Xbox One and a comment talking about the Xbox One's power specifically in comparison to the PlayStation 4, even though the PlayStation 4 is never exactly named. It's pretty obvious what's being talked about. And, you know, the paraphrasing of the title of the article said that this person said, what was his name? Alan Bowman. So what Alan Bowman had said is that the difference between the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 is fairly marginal, quote unquote. And it's interesting when you actually read the quotes. So I kind of wanted to just read to you exactly what it was that he did say, what it was I think he was actually trying to say compared to what IGN kind of spun the story as. And honestly, just the overall broad topic of that power, what the difference means for the two systems, what it means overall for all three next-gen systems, and just kind of if it's even important in the long run. So what it was that he said, this was a quote that I think was taken a little bit out of context, but he said, we're optimistic about this generation. We've got a unique value proposition, and from just a pure specs perspective, it's always going to be fairly marginal difference. The purists are going to argue the toss, which yes, they will, but I think it comes down to the games. I think that that's a pretty interesting concept. One last thing he actually added that I wanted to talk about. He says you're going to see great exclusive games on the Xbox One. And when you look at the cross-platform games, there's going to be exclusive content on the Xbox One. So that's the end of the quotes there. So what was interesting is, again, he said, he didn't say exactly, specifically, there is a fairly marginal difference in specs between the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And I say that because I do believe that it is very notoriously true that the PlayStation 4 is the slightly more powerful system. So I think that's why the spin in the news maybe was taken. But what all he said was there is simply and always will be between any systems a fairly marginal difference. That is very true. So I guess what does that mean? The other thing he said that I thought was important was where he says the purists are always going to argue the toss. That was the most telling thing about this whole statement. And I think that's kind of an unfortunate thing because for some odd reason, as the power of systems has become less and less really important to making games and systems seem better, people seem more and more obsessed with that and want to really determine the value of a system based solely on that. And I think that is ludicrous and ridiculously unfortunate to all three of the console makers. It really shouldn't come down to that. I should preface this by saying it certainly does make a difference, and it certainly is and can be and usually will be pretty important. I'm not so stupid to think that you can't say that more power and better graphics doesn't make a lot of games better or aid in making a lot of games better than other games. But there are also cases where that isn't the case. I mean, case in point is there's tons of great games from last gen and the generation before that are better than a lot of the games coming out now. there were last generation, the big hardware difference was between the Wii and the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And they were fantastic games across the board for all systems, but there were tons of games on the Wii that were better than a lot of tons of games on the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. And that was by using, less power, but a greater user interface and other really great ideas. And even beyond that, just kick-ass content, which is, again, what this gentleman said at the end, where he said, I think it's going to come down to the games, which is always going to be true. That is something that people can never forget. And there's a huge community of us gamers that realize that and recognize it and will always bring it up when these conversations come along. And there was another humongous community of people that will never really understand that, and they're only going to argue the asinine point of graphics make the games, graphics are better, more powerful systems equals the best system out there, blah, 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 blah. All stuff that aids in great games, but they are not and never will be the end point of making a game great. So what's going to be interesting to see is if some gamers and if part of the community take exactly what Mr. Bowman is saying here and turn it into something it's not. Like, I'm really afraid of people spinning it as an admission of the failure in power that the Xbox One has because the PlayStation 4 might be better. Or, like I said, I think it actually is technically a more powerful system. That will be completely unfair to Microsoft, to the Xbox One, and to Alan Bowman here. That's just ridiculous. I think that what he was trying to say made a lot of sense. Again, the games and the content make the difference. He brought out that, we're going to have a bunch of great exclusives for the Xbox One. As somebody who has been slowly becoming really, really excited, and I really want an Xbox One now, and a month or two ago, I really wasn't too concerned about it. I think that he's correct. There are going to be a lot of exclusives, I think sooner than later, that are going to make the system very enticing and worth its price. And then he mentioned the exclusive content thing, and that, for multi-platform games. And that's true too. They do a great job with that. It was just announced that the first DLC content for Call of Duty Ghosts, something that I personally love, as I'm sure you've noticed, is going to be coming out. And of course, the Xbox exclusivity, timed exclusivity, is still continuing with this generation. So, as it was stated, it's going to be content that comes to the Xbox platforms first. So both the 360 and Xbox One versions of Call of Duty Ghosts are going to be getting that content on January 28th, which is really cool for them. I'm super sad because I want it now, but what are you going to do? I'm going to have to wait. That's fine. And it'll come to all the other platforms later. So, and that's, still with Call of Duty, which is still, as far as we know, the most successful franchise. They're doing the right things there. And if they find a way to make that happen in the future, that's going to help them. However, I will give it to Sony, because Sony has been making great strides in this respect too, as evidenced by a lot of the Ubisoft stuff. The Assassin's Creed exclusives content was insane for the PlayStation 3 and 4, and same with the upcoming Watch Dogs. There's a bunch of exclusive content and exclusive abilities for that. Bear in mind, a lot of that stuff is not enticing to me, and I think it's the wrong way to go about it. Timed exclusivity with DLC and stuff is a business model that I can get behind, even when it doesn't work in my favor. That makes sense to me. The exclusive content thing, I think, can sometimes get a little bit out of hand, and that's a huge problem that began halfway through this last generation, continued, and is now beginning with this next generation. It still looks like it's moving forward this way. I understand and appreciate why it's a good thing. So, Sony being aggressive and trying to get that content, and same with Microsoft, that's a great thing, Nintendo doesn't really go out of their ways to do that, and I guess it's unfortunate because some people really like that stuff. However, since I don't really care and I'm a Nintendo platform player first, I can just deal with it. I played Assassin's Creed 4. I didn't really dig the game, but that's not the point. The point is I played it on the Wii U and it was just fine. I didn't really care that I was missing some of the other things that the PlayStation versions had. And I don't mind waiting for, DLC and stuff for Call of Duty, for example. I don't really care. That's fine. I'll get it when I get it. But the point is that those games really do make the system, and we're at the point, this is such a tired argument, so forgive me because I know that this is a tired argument, but it still is relevant to what I'm talking about. So we are getting to the point where these leaps in graphical capability and technical prowess of machines is only going to get us so far. Yes, things are already looking better and are only going to continue to look more and more better, but that was a terrible sentence, but you know what I mean. By comparison to the last generation, the PS3, Wii, and 360, as this generation continues, and that's great that they're going to look really well, but I don't think that that's going to matter. I'm hoping that with the relevance of PC gaming nowadays and how, at least 2 of the 3 next-gen platforms are so blatantly chasing that model, I think that it's going to start showing people that at the end of the day, the content's going to matter, especially, also, especially, I should say, as indie games and stuff that isn't known for technical prowess becomes more and more popular and does more and more business. As that stuff is happening in games that aren't relying on look how pretty this is and look at the motion blur and all this kind of stuff becomes successful, people are going to realize that you can make smaller budget games, maybe even sell them for less, but make a lot of money and still get really good reviews, and people will love them because they will just be great. And that sells the platform. It sells the system. That's what, even through the first, rough almost year of the Wii U's life cycle, Nintendo's been banking on. It's the games that make the difference. Even with the system that, wow, very powerful, isn't as powerful as what the other two systems are make available to us. They're still seeing that success slowly but surely. And as I've predicted, they're going to continue to see that through 2014. This is going to be the year that the Wii U really hits its stride. I think it will finish as the second highest selling system of the year, and that's going to be really great. But I don't think that means that the Xbox One, which I think will be the lowest selling system, will not sell a lot. I think it will still do well for itself. I think the amount of success is going to be measured a little bit differently, because of course it's the most expensive of the three platforms. So how much profit it's turning by selling the least of the three could be tough to gauge, but I think it'll still do okay. We know that we're going to get some good games. Man, I really hope that they get that Halo game out this year, which was supposed to be Halo 5, and I've been reading some things that are saying it hasn't actually been, while it has been confirmed for, I think, this year, it hasn't been confirmed as Halo 5, so now there's this concern it might be some sort of spin-off title, kind of like what Reach was, so I don't know. I don't want to get into that territory. I'm just excited for it either way, and it will help sell the system when it comes out this year regardless. When we think of a 2015 or a 2016 in this generation, I mean, really stop and think about that for a minute. It's something that we don't normally do in this industry, is we can't really stop and think ahead to what the future gaming landscape could be like in another few years, And if you struggle to do that, what I recommend is try to go backwards in practice. So go back to the beginning of the last generation, 2005 and 2006, when those three systems were coming out, and what it felt like, how exciting it was. All these things were new. We didn't have like these crazy online infrastructures like we do right now. And, and think back to 2005 and 2006. Then go to like 2009, 2010, and remember the difference, and remember what the gaming landscape for that respective generation was at the very, very beginning, and then just a few years in. It was pretty different. Sales of the systems were different. Some games were more popular than we wouldn't have seen. Services and features and all sorts of things existed that we wouldn't have seen coming, and a lot of them were great. And that franchises had started. I mean, crazy things were going on, and that is a telling sign of really what the breadth of the lifespan of any generation cycle really brings to the table. So here we are. This generation is a baby. I mean, it's technically a year old, just over a year old, because the Wii U was November 2012. Here we are in the beginning of 2014. That's a year and 2 months, It's a year old. The other systems are just a few months old. I mean, we're in the genesis of this generation. And when we think about what's going to be happening, like I said, 2015, 2016, man, who knows what's going to be going on? I think the last thing that we're going to be talking about, and I hope that becomes important this generation, because last generation, this did not go away. So if this goes away this generation, that'd be great. I don't think we're going to be having the graphics conversation like we do today and have this last generation in another 2 or 3 years. I think that it's going to be going away, especially if, like I said, if I see the Wii U selling as well as I think it's going to, and Nintendo starts to gain its typical very powerful success with its system, that's going to further showcase that it's not going to be all about the graphics. And again, I don't want to take anything away from the Wii U, because I think it sometimes gets lost in these conversations in a way that isn't fair, because all three systems that are on the market now are very powerful machines. They're all more powerful and offer us new things that the previous generation didn't. And there's a hierarchy to that, just like there always is. The PlayStation 4 is on top, the Xbox One is in the middle, and the Wii U is below that. But last generation, there was the PlayStation 3, then the Xbox, then the Wii. Then it was the Xbox, then the GameCube, then the PS2. And there's always this three-system hierarchy, but it doesn't really matter. They're always still a step beyond the previous generation. That's what makes them next generation. The Wii U can do the things visually and technically and with the interface because of its controller that all three previous systems could not do. That's what matters. So it's still going to be a very powerful system that, while being the least powerful, I think will be successful and help dilute the conversation about graphics and visuals. It's always going to be important. Again, I know I said that at the beginning. I'm going to start to go in circles here, so I'm going to end this topic, okay, in a minute. But it's always going to be important. So don't think I'm ever going to say that, a pretty or a good-looking game or a graphically groundbreaking game isn't going to bring excitement to the table and many times help make a game be better, because that presentation counts a lot. But the quality of the game, the way it feels and controls, the things that you're doing, and with the right kind of things like the Wii U gamepad, if Kinect somehow ends up making a difference in the future, if the now redesigned, which I called this, the now redesigned Steam Machine controller, becomes successful, those things are going to continue to make a difference. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see. So that's, like I said, I don't want to continue to go in circles. That's really what I'm getting at. Graphics do matter. Power does matter, but not as much as I think that we like to think it does. This conversation that is constantly happening amongst gamers and within the industry about the power under the hood and the graphics of this, and this looks great and this looks great. It's not the be-all, end-all like some people want to treat it. People on forums, you guys, I love you guys. You're gamers just like I am, but you got to stop that. It's not just about that. The games make the difference. They really always do. And features and things like Hulu and Netflix and all these other TV things, like, they're cool, I guess. I use Netflix on all 3 of my systems now. I even use it on my 3DS and my phone. It's cool, but it's not, that shouldn't be a selling point either. It shouldn't be. It's the games and the game playing capability of your game machine. That should be first. So I hope that remains the forefront. So anyway, this is my long, crazy rant about that stuff. It's interesting to see the quotes from this Microsoft executive were very interesting. I hope it doesn't get taken out of whack for his sake, because I think he said and did the right thing. So I guess we'll just have to see. So the other quick little fun thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is, as I had said in this video, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you would have noticed this, I am a complete sucker for Call of Duty. I am not ashamed. I am only proud to admit it. I freaking love it. I love all of those games. I play them every year, and I am totally proud of that. And in that, I've noticed that a brand new announcement for the DLC has just been released. And what it is saying is that Michael Myers of the Halloween films is going to be playable. It's the Onslaught DLC pack. That is coming, again, as I said in this video. It is January 28th for the Xbox platforms, and it's going to come for an undetermined time later. They haven't really announced any of that. And I'm playing Call of Duty Ghosts on the Wii U. I've been wanting to have more Nintendo-related stories lately, and I haven't really found a whole lot to talk about, so I figured, well, screw it. I'm playing this game on the Wii U, so I might as well bring this up. And yes, I do feel like this content is going to come out on the Wii U. Ghosts has sold far more better than Black Ops 2 did, which also sold okay, by the way. But that was an experiment. We got totally dicked on that, and I was not happy with Treyarch, but I believe Infinity Ward is going to deliver here, because they delivered a great game with Ghosts on the Wii U, and I'm hoping that it's going to continue. So I'm really excited to get this DLC. And I think that the Michael Myers thing is kind of interesting, because I know with, now I can't remember which game it was. Maybe it was for Black Ops 2. They had Michael Madsen and a few different characters, a few different actors and stuff that were playable, either in Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 3. I can't remember now. Maybe even Black Ops 1. I don't know. But they brought those characters in for like some of the zombie-related stuff. And when it comes to Ghosts, they're going to be releasing Michael Myers. And I think that that's kind of interesting. He's somebody you can play, which I thought was surprising. And now I think it almost would have been neat if he was maybe revealed to be somebody that you would run into or have to avoid. I think that could have almost added another really cool sort of scary or fear element to the game. Something that they've been toying around with ever since the zombie stuff. They've done a few different versions of zombies related stuff in the last few Call of Duties. And of course, with Ghosts, they did the extinction mode with the aliens, which definitely has a kind of a very macabre feel. It's really super cool. And I love that they like to bring these random elements into these otherwise semi-realistic, military Call of Duty shooters. It's really cool. And so doing something with Michael Myers, it reminds me of the old NES, not the Friday the 13th. Yeah, it was Friday the 13th with Jason, where if anyone is even old enough to have remembered that or played it, I would be so shocked. But it was a great game where you're playing as a group of kids and you're wandering through the woods, and it would turn to nighttime, something that was very rare back then. And you'd go in and out of houses searching for clues, and you never knew when you would walk from one room to another if Jason would just be standing there and and make these terrible noises, and he'd be freaking huge, like so disproportionately gigantic, and it was goddamn terrifying. 8-bit horror. I'm telling you, it was a real thing. And but it was also so cool, like you couldn't help but do it. It just had this great feel of tension. And I think that for the Call of Duty games, it would have been neat. And they might even still do this, which is kind of why I'm bringing it up, where they do something with Michael Myers where he's kind of chasing you, or maybe they make specific modes. Because I think he's only available in something, where is it? Myers will be a playable character in the new Fog map, where you'll be able to wield an axe and stalk your victims through a location complete with abandoned cabin, campsite, and torture chamber. So that's a direct quote from the IGN link about it. So that's cool, because that's almost you playing as Michael Myers in the idea that I was talking about. It'd be really cool if there was a way to do the opposite, where you could play as people trying to survive or something, or hunt him down, or make sure he's not hunting you. Some kind of horror element. I don't know. But it's pretty cool. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I think that overall it's kind of a fun thing. It's a neat thing. It's a neat addition to the idea of the Call of Duty, actor or movie related stuff that they're bringing into the series on occasion. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, look for that. Like I said, it's the Onslaught DLC pack for Call of Duty Ghosts. It is January 28th for the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. And for the other platforms, we have no date, but it should be sometime soon after that. Alrighty, well, that's it for today, guys. Semi-long video, so hopefully you dug it. Of course, if you like what I do, go ahead and subscribe to the channel at Rule 2 Review. Go to the Facebook page and like that. I always post the link to that in the description below. You can find us on Twitter at Rule of 2 Review. And of course, don't forget to share the video if you liked it, and like the video, and let everyone know how much you love or hate us, because that's what we do. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.